Admiral Kazzix stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Star Crusher, his forearms crossed in what he considered an intimidating pose. His silver scales glinted under the harsh bridge lights as he watched the primitive vessels on the main view screen. The human ships looked like children's toys compared to his magnificent fleet. "Look at those pathetic excuses for spacecraft," he announced to his bridge crew, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Their hulls are so thin, I bet we could punch through them with mining lasers." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Kazzix, let out an appreciative chortle. "The database shows they only achieved FTL travel 50 years ago, Admiral. They're practically infants playing with their first set of plasma toys." Kazzix flexed his upper arms in satisfaction. The Drachnid Empire had ruled this sector of space for 10,000 years. They had crushed 17 different species who dared to resist their expansion. These humans would be number 18. "Send them our standard greeting," Kazzix ordered, settling into his command throne. The greeting was actually an ultimatum: surrender immediately or face annihilation. It was really just a formality. No species had ever surrendered, and Kazzix hoped these humans wouldn't either. He was in the mood for some target practice. The communications officer, a young female named Kazzix, pressed her sensory appendages against the console. "Message sent, Admiral. Awaiting response." Kazzix studied the 5 human vessels more carefully. Their designs were utterly baffling. No obvious weapons arrays, minimal armor plating, and power signatures that barely registered on their sensors. How had such a primitive species even managed to reach the stars? Admiral Kazzix called out, "We're receiving their response." "Put it on screen," Kazzix said with a dismissive wave of his lower right hand. "Let's see them beg for mercy." The screen flickered to life, showing a human female with dark skin and what appeared to be decorative fabric wrapped around her head. She wore a simple blue uniform with minimal ornamentation. "This is Captain Amanda Blackwood of the Earth exploration vessel Curiosity," she said, her voice remarkably calm. "We acknowledge your greeting. However, there seems to be a misunderstanding. This sector falls under the protection of the Sol Accords. We recommend you consult your star charts and withdraw immediately." Kazzix nearly fell out of his command throne laughing. The bridge crew joined in, their combined mirth echoing off the metallic walls. "Protection," he managed to sputter. "You protect nothing. Your ships are barely more than cargo haulers." Captain Blackwood's expression remained neutral. "I assure you, Admiral, this is no joke. We are a peaceful research expedition, but if you proceed with hostile actions, we will be forced to defend ourselves. Please consider your next move carefully." Kazzix raised himself to his full height, all 4 arms spread wide in a traditional gesture of dominance. "Oh, I have considered it very carefully, human. Your species has 2 options: immediate surrender or immediate destruction. You have 30 seconds to decide." "I see," Captain Blackwood said, sighing. "Then I should inform you that we've already transmitted your coordinates and hostile intentions to Earth Command. They're quite disappointed." 20 seconds, Kazzix replied, gesturing for his weapons officer to begin targeting solutions. Admiral Captain Blackwood tried one last time. "You really don't want to do this. The consequences." 10 seconds. "Very well," the human captain straightened in her chair. "For the record, Admiral Kazzix of the Drachnid Empire, you were warned. Multiple times. What happens next is entirely your responsibility." Kazzix slashed his upper right hand through the air, cutting off the transmission. "Target their command vessel first. Let's show them what real space combat looks like." The Star Crusher's main weapon, a particle lance capable of cutting through planetary crusts, powered up with a satisfying hum. The other ships in his fleet moved into attack formation, their own weapons charging. "Fire," Kazzix commanded, already imagining the accolades he would receive for adding another species to the Empire's list of conquests. The particle lance shot forth, a brilliant beam of purple energy that should have sliced the human vessel in half. Instead, it splashed harmlessly against what appeared to be empty space about 50 meters from the ship's hull. Kazzix blinked all 4 of his eyes in succession. What just happened? "Unknown," Admiral, his weapons officer, reported, panic creeping into his voice. "They appear to have some kind of invisible barrier technology." "Impossible," Kazzix roared. They're primitives. Hit them again, full spread. The entire fleet opened fire, filling space with enough energy to crack a small moon. Every single shot dissipated against the invisible barriers protecting the human ships. Captain Blackwood's face appeared on their screen again. She wasn't smiling. "Admiral Kazzix, this is your final warning. Power down your weapons and withdraw, or we will be forced to demonstrate why picking a fight with humans is a very, very bad idea." "You dare threaten me?" Kazzix screamed. "I am Admiral Kazzix of the E." A series of small objects suddenly appeared between his fleet and the human vessels. They were spherical, no larger than escape pods, and seemed to be made of some dull gray metal. "What are those supposed to be?" Kazzix asked, leaning forward to get a better look. Captain Blackwood's image disappeared, replaced by a simple text message: "Congratulations, Admiral. You just declared war on the wrong species." The gray spheres exploded into brilliant white light. The brilliant white light faded, revealing something that made Admiral Kazzix's scales turn pale. Where there had been 5 seemingly defenseless research vessels moments ago, now floated 20 sleek warships, their hulls gleaming with a metallic sheen he'd never seen before. How he sputtered, all 4 hands gripping his command throne. Where did they come from? "The spheres," Admiral Kazzix shouted from her station. They were some kind of portal devices. A new face appeared on their main screen. The human woman wore a black uniform with red trim, her pale skin contrasting sharply with short auburn hair. "Admiral Kazzix, I am Commander Alexandra Nash of the Earth Defense Force First Fleet. Those research vessels you just tried to destroy were bait. Very expensive bait, I might add." "Impossible," Kazzix roared, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. No species could hide an entire battle fleet in devices that small. Commander Nash smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You'd be surprised what humans can pack into small packages. "Now, about those 2 options you gave us earlier. I have a counteroffer." Before Kazzix could respond, his tactical officer screamed in panic. "Admiral, their weapons are like nothing we've ever seen. Energy signatures are off the charts. Target their flagship," Kazzix ordered, trying to regain control of the situation. "Show them the might of the Drachnid Empire." The Star Crusher's particle lance fired again, this time at Commander Nash's vessel. The beam struck another invisible barrier, but this time something different happened. The energy seemed to spiral around the barrier before being redirected straight back at them. "Hard to port," Kazzix bellowed, but it was too late. The Star Crusher shuddered as its own weapon's energy sliced through its port side armor, like it was made of paper. "That's called a reflective defense matrix," Commander Nash explained, as casual as if she were teaching a class. "We developed it after studying recordings of your attacks on other species. Speaking of which..." Her image was replaced by footage of Drachnid ships attacking clearly outmatched civilizations. "We've been watching you for quite some time, Admiral. Every conquest, every slaughter, every species you forced into submission. We documented it all." "If you've been watching," Kazzix snarled, "then you know the power of our fleet. All ships, attack pattern Sigma. Overwhelm their defenses." His remaining ships moved into formation, preparing to launch a synchronized assault that had broken planetary defense systems in the past. But the human vessels moved with impossible speed, weaving between his ships like water through rocks. "Power fluctuations across the fleet," Kazzix reported. "They're doing something to our engines." Commander Nash reappeared. "That would be our quantum disruptors. Fascinating technology. Would you like me to explain how they work?" "Stop playing games," Kazzix shouted. "Fight with honor." Honor. Nash's expression hardened. Was it honorable to attack peaceful research vessels? Was it honorable to give them only 30 seconds to surrender their freedom? "No, Admiral, you don't get to talk about honor." The human ships began firing in earnest now, but instead of the expected energy weapons, they launched what looked like small missiles. Kazzix almost laughed. Projectile weapons? How primitive. His laughter died as the missiles passed straight through their shields as if they weren't there. "Quantum tunneling warheads," Nash explained. "They exist in multiple states until they detonate. Your shields can't stop what they can't definitively detect. We developed those specifically for bullies like you." 3 Drachnid ships exploded simultaneously. Kazzix watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by weapons that shouldn't exist and tactics that defied conventional space combat doctrine. "Sub-Commander," he said quietly to Kazzix, "send the retreat signal." "Running away so soon?" Nash asked. "But we haven't even shown you our really interesting weapons yet. Like this one." A beam of pure darkness shot from her flagship, striking one of Kazzix's cruisers. The darkness seemed to eat away at the ship's hull, spreading like a cancer until the entire vessel simply ceased to exist. "We call that a null field projector," Nash said. "It temporarily removes matter from our universe. Don't worry, the ship and crew will reappear in about 6 hours, somewhere near their home port, if our calculations are correct." Kazzix slumped in his command throne. In less than 20 minutes, humans had completely invalidated 10,000 years of Drachnid military doctrine. Half his fleet was destroyed, a quarter was missing in action, and the remainder were so damaged they could barely maintain life support. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "Want? Oh no, Admiral. This isn't a negotiation. This is a demonstration. You see, humanity has a rather unfortunate history of warfare. We spent millennia fighting each other, developing increasingly creative ways to win conflicts. When we finally united and reached the stars, we hoped to find peace." She leaned forward in her command chair. "Instead, we found empires like yours, preying on younger species, crushing their potential before they could even reach for the stars. We decided that wouldn't do it all." "So now what?" Kazzix asked, dreading the answer. Now Nash smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. "Now you get to go home and explain to your leaders exactly why attacking those research ships was the worst mistake the Drachnid Empire has ever made. Because this..." She gestured at the devastation around them. "This was just our warning shot." The remaining human ships began to withdraw, their hulls rippling with that strange metallic sheen. Commander Nash's image started to fade, but her voice remained clear. "Oh, and Admiral, the next time you see what looks like an easy target, remember this day. Remember that humans are very, very good at making things look harmless until they aren't." Kazzix watched as the human fleet vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving behind only the wreckage of his ships and the brutal knowledge that the galaxy was a far more dangerous place than he'd ever imagined. The grand chamber of the Drachnid High Council buzzed with angry voices. Admiral Kazzix stood in the center of the circular room, all 4 arms held stiffly at his sides as accusations flew from every direction. "You mean to tell us, High Counselor," Brakmar said, his scales flushed an angry purple, "that 5 human research vessels were actually bait for an ambush?" "Yes," High Counselor Kazzix replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "They had technology we've never seen before. Weapons that..." Silence. Another counselor, Vesna, slammed her ceremonial staff against the floor. The mighty Admiral Kazzix, terror of the outer systems, defeated by a handful of primitive humans? Preposterous. Kazzix felt his temper rising. "With all due respect, Counselor, there was nothing primitive about their weapons. They turned our own energy beams against us. They made entire ships disappear." Then clearly a silky voice cut through the chamber. "We must respond with overwhelming force." All eyes turned to Supreme War Director Malxis as he emerged from the shadows. His ceremonial armor gleamed with the bones of defeated enemies, and his cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Kazzix. "I have already dispatched the 3rd and 4th battle fleets," Malxis announced. "These humans will learn the price of humiliating the Drachnid Empire." Kazzix felt his stomach sink. "Sir, I strongly advise against." "Your advice is neither required nor desired," Admiral Malxis cut him off. "You will remain here while real warriors handle this situation." 3 days later, Kazzix watched with grim satisfaction as Malxis' rage stomped around the Grand Chamber, throwing data tablets against the walls. "Impossible," Malxis roared. "Both fleets gone. How? How are they doing this?" The footage playing on the chamber's main screen showed the mighty Drachnid armada approaching a human mining colony. The ships had barely entered the system when hundreds of small objects swarmed out from behind asteroids and defunct satellites. "Drone swarms," Kazzix explained. unable to keep the smugness from his voice. The humans call them angry bees. They're controlled by artificial intelligence and can adapt their attack patterns faster than our gunners can target them. On screen, the tiny drones zipped through the Drachnid formation. Some latched onto ship hulls, cutting through armor with molecular disassemblers. Others flew into engine exhausts, detonating with surgical precision. Still others projected miniature versions of the quantum-tunneling warheads that had devastated Kazzix's own fleet. But that's not even the clever part, Kazzix continued, enjoying Malxus's growing horror. Notice how some ships are simply vanishing. Indeed, Drachnid vessels were blinking out of existence one by one. No explosions, no debris, just there one moment and gone the next. The humans seeded the entire system with microscopic teleportation arrays, Kazzix explained. When our ships hit them, they're randomly transported to different parts of the galaxy. The Third Fleet flagship reportedly appeared in orbit around a tourist resort planet, in the middle of their synchronized swimming competition. Enough. Malxus slammed his fist down on a nearby console. We'll send everything we have. Every ship, every soldier, every... The screen suddenly flickered, and Commander Alexandra Nash's face appeared. She appeared to be eating something from a bowl. "Sorry to interrupt," she said between bites, "but I couldn't help overhearing your lovely conversation. Are those noodles any good?" Every Drachnid in the chamber froze. Malxus's cybernetic eye twitched violently. How are you accessing our secure channels?" he demanded. "Oh," that Nash twirled more noodles around her eating utensil. "We hacked your entire communication network about 6 hours after Admiral Kazzix's little adventure. Your encryption is pretty good, by the way. Took us almost 15 minutes to crack it completely." Kazzix noticed she was wearing what appeared to be sleeping attire with little cartoon animals printed on it. The supreme military commander of humanity's most advanced battle fleet was casually eating noodles in her pajamas while terrorizing the Drachnid Empire. "You find this amusing?" Malxus snarled. "Actually, yes," Nash replied. "Especially the part where you're about to announce sending your entire fleet after us. Quick question, did you happen to notice what happened to your sensor stations along the Cygnus border?" Malxus barked an order, and a subordinate quickly checked the data. "Sir, all stations are offline." "That's right," Nash said cheerfully. "We sent them on a little vacation too. So you actually have no idea what we're doing out there right now. Fun, isn't it?" "You dare," Malxus began, but Nash cut him off. "Here's the really fun part," she continued, setting aside her now empty bowl. "Everything you've seen so far, all the fancy weapons, the drones, the teleporters, that's our old tech, the stuff we were planning to retire anyway. We've been using your little war as a live fire exercise to test our new systems." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Kazzix felt his scales growing pale again. "For instance," Nash said, "that quantum tunneling technology you're so worried about. That's practically Stone Age compared to what we're rolling out next week. Would you like a preview?" "This is a bluff," Malxus declared. "No species could advance their technology so quickly." "You're right," Nash agreed. "No normal species could. But you see, there's something you should understand about humans. We're really, really good at three things: adapting, improvising, and taking other people's stuff apart to see how it works." She leaned forward, her expression suddenly serious. "Every species you conquered, we found their survivors, learned their technology, combined it with our own, and now we're going to show you what happens when humanity decides to get creative." The screen split, showing a massive Drachnid shipyard orbiting one of their core worlds. As they watched, the entire structure began to glow with a strange, rainbow-colored light. "That's our new prismatic phase shifter," Nash explained. "It's temporarily shifting your shipyard into a parallel dimension. Don't worry, it'll come back. Probably. We're still working out some bugs in the targeting system." The shipyard vanished, taking with it 36 nearly completed warships and over 10,000 workers. "Stop this madness," Malxus screamed. "What do you want from us?" Nash's smile returned. "Oh, we don't want anything from you. We're just making sure you understand exactly how badly you messed up when you threatened those research ships. Speaking of which..." The screen split again, showing hundreds of identical vessels appearing around Drachnid colony worlds. "Those are duplicates of the same research ships you attacked," Nash said. "We quantum copied them. Each one is packed with enough surprises to ruin your entire day. Have fun figuring out which ones are real." The transmission cut off, leaving the Grand Chamber in stunned silence. After several long moments, every eye turned to Admiral Kazzix. "I did try to warn you," he said with a shrug of all four arms. "They're not like any enemy we've faced before. They treat warfare like some kind of entertaining puzzle to be solved." "And what would you suggest?" Malxus asked, his earlier arrogance completely deflated. Kazzix looked around the chamber, meeting each council member's eyes in turn. "I suggest we pray they're in a forgiving mood, because right now they're not even fighting us seriously. They're playing with us." A distant boom shook the chamber, and rainbow-colored light began seeping through the windows. Admiral Kazzix stood at the window of his temporary office, watching as another prismatic wave rolled across the capital city's skyline. The strange phenomenon had become a regular occurrence over the past week, randomly transforming buildings into everything from giant chocolate sculptures to elaborate water fountains. The humans called it aggressive urban redecorating. His communication console chimed. "Admiral," his aide's voice trembled. "The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies again." "Put it through," Kazzix sighed. These broadcasts had become a daily torment. Sometimes it was Commander Nash eating different Earth foods and rating them. Other times it was humans giving deliberately terrible advice about Drachnid culture to their fellow soldiers. Today, however, was different. The screen showed a formal meeting room where Commander Nash sat alongside several other humans in military uniforms. "Good morning," Admiral Nash said cheerfully. "We thought it was time for a proper chat about your Empire's life choices." "What have you done now?" Kazzix asked, dreading the answer. "Why don't you check your long-range sensors?" "Oh wait, those don't work anymore. Let me show you instead." The view switched to a strategic display of Drachnid space. Kazzix's jaw dropped. Thousands of human warships had appeared throughout their territory, but these weren't the sleek predators he'd seen before. These ships were mountains of metal and energy, each one larger than a small moon. "You see," Nash explained, "those little ships you've been fighting. Those were our quick reaction force. Scout ships, really. These," she gestured at the behemoths, "are our actual warships." "Impossible," Kazzix whispered. "The energy requirements alone would." "Would what?" "Break the laws of physics," another human spoke up, an older male with graying hair. "Hi, I'm Admiral James Thompson. I hear you're the one who started this lovely war. Thanks for that, by the way. Research and development needed a good field test for their new toys." The display zoomed in on one of the massive vessels. Its hull seemed to be made of constantly shifting metal, flowing like liquid but harder than any material the Drachnid had ever encountered. "That's smart matter," Thompson explained. "The entire ship can reconfigure itself on the fly. Watch this." The enormous vessel suddenly split into hundreds of smaller ships, each one still larger than Kazzix's flagship. Then they recombined, forming a different configuration entirely. "And that's just the boring technical stuff," Nash cut in. "Want to see something really fun?" Before Kazzix could respond, alarms blared throughout the capital. On his screens, he watched as giant floating holograms appeared over every major Drachnid city. They showed highlights from the Empire's recent military defeats, set to what the humans called comedy sound effects. "We call that psychological warfare," Nash said. "Though honestly, we're just having fun now. Did you know your civilians have started making memes about your military incompetence? They're actually pretty good at it." "This is your idea of warfare," Kazzix demanded, "humiliating us with entertainment." "No, this is our idea of teaching you a lesson," Thompson replied. "Real warfare would involve us simply erasing your empire from existence, like this." One of the moon-sized vessels fired a single shot at an uninhabited planet in the Drachnid system. The entire world didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing but empty space where it had been. "That's what we call a total conversion weapon," Thompson said casually. "Transforms all matter in the target area into energy. Very clean, very efficient. We developed it for destroying rogue asteroids, but it works on planets too. Kazzix slumped into his chair. Why show us this now? Because Nash leaned forward. We want you to understand something. Everything we've done until now, all the teleporting ships, the prismatic phase shifting, the drone swarms, that was us being nice, being playful, trying to teach you a lesson without causing too much harm. But now, Thompson added, we need you to understand exactly what you picked a fight with. Humanity spent thousands of years trying to kill itself in increasingly creative ways. When we finally united and looked to the stars, we promised ourselves we'd never let anyone else go through that. So we watch, Nash continued. We find bullies like you, who prey on younger species, and we stop them. Usually we try to do it diplomatically, but sometimes, like when someone threatens to destroy our research ships without provocation, we have to be more direct. The display changed again, showing hundreds of the quantum-copied research vessels surrounding the Drachnid homeworld, but now each one was transforming, their harmless-looking hulls peeling away to reveal weapons that made Kazzix's scales itch just looking at them. Those copies we scattered through your empire, Nash smiled. They're not just decoys. Each one is a fully armed warship in disguise. We have your entire civilization surrounded, Admiral. Every world, every outpost, every hidden base you think we don't know about. Even that secret facility in the gas giant's atmosphere, Thompson added. The one you're thinking about right now? Yes, that one. We've known about it for years. Kazzix felt the last of his military pride crumble. What happens now? Now Nash's expression softened slightly. Now you get to make a choice. You can either continue this war, in which case we'll be forced to demonstrate why making humans actually fight seriously is a terminal mistake, or you can agree to some simple terms. Stop attacking other species. Free your conquered territories. Join the galactic community as equals rather than conquerors. And if we refuse? Thompson shrugged. Then we start using our actual weapons, the ones that make total conversion look primitive, the ones we developed when we really were trying to kill each other. Trust me, Admiral, you don't want to see those. As if to emphasize the point, another prismatic wave rolled across the city. This time, it turned the entire Imperial War Museum into a giant bouncy castle. We'll give you 1 hour to discuss it with your leadership, Nash said. Oh, and Admiral, remember this is us being friendly. You really don't want to see us when we're not in a good mood. The transmission ended, leaving Kazzix staring at his reflection in the black screen. Behind him, through his office window, he could see Drachnid children actually playing in the bouncy castle that had been their most sacred military monument. He reached for his communicator, ready to contact the High Council. Then he paused, watching the children play for a moment longer. Perhaps, he thought, it was time for the Drachnid Empire to learn some new ways. The Grand Chamber had never been so quiet. Admiral Kazzix stood before the High Council, but this time there were no accusations, no angry outbursts. Only the sound of worried breathing from 24 of the most powerful Drachnid in the Empire. Supreme War Director Malxus, his cybernetic eye dimmed to almost black, broke the silence. You're suggesting we surrender. I am suggesting, Kazzix replied carefully, that we take the humans up on their offer to negotiate, before they decide to turn our entire civilization into an amusement park. As if on cue, the chamber's ornate ceiling rippled with prismatic energy, transforming into what the humans called a disco ball. Music started playing from nowhere, something about staying alive. They're not even taking this seriously, Counselor Vesna protested, though her voice lacked its usual venom. They treat war like some kind of entertainment. No, Kazzix corrected her. They treat us like misbehaving children because that's how we've behaved. We attacked without provocation. We threatened peaceful researchers. We acted like bullies, and now we're facing the consequences. The main screen activated, showing Commander Nash. This time she was wearing what appeared to be casual clothing with the words "I'm with stupid" and an arrow pointing to the side. Sorry to interrupt, she said, not sounding sorry at all, but your hour is almost up. Have you made a decision? Also, loving what you've done with the ceiling. Malxus stood, his ceremonial armor clanking. We are the Drachnid Empire. We have ruled this sector for 10,000 years. We will not bow to. Oh, please, Nash cut him off. Spare us the speech. We've heard it before from better empires than yours. Besides, you're not even paying attention to what's happening right now. What do you mean? Kazzix asked, feeling a familiar sense of dread. Well, while War Director Drama Queen here was posturing, we went ahead and transformed your entire defense fleet into something more interesting. Take a look outside. The council members rushed to the grand windows. Where the mighty First Defense Fleet had been orbiting, there was now a collection of what appeared to be small pleasure craft, complete with water slides connecting them. Don't worry, your crews are fine, Nash assured them. They're actually having a pretty good time. Turns out Drachnid are naturally excellent at water sports. Who knew? Malxus slumped back into his seat, his cybernetic eye finally going completely dark. Now then, Nash continued, her tone becoming more businesslike. Let's talk about those terms. Admiral Kazzix, would you join me aboard my flagship? We can discuss this face-to-face like civilized beings. Before anyone could object, a beam of light enveloped Kazzix. He found himself standing in what appeared to be a comfortable meeting room. Commander Nash sat at a simple table, 2 cups of some steaming beverage before her. Coffee, she offered. Or we have tea if you prefer. We've figured out what's safe for Drachnid physiology. Kazzix settled carefully into a chair designed to accommodate his 4 arms. You could have done this at any time, couldn't you? Just teleported into our chambers, ended the war in seconds. Of course, Nash nodded. We could have done a lot of things, but that wouldn't have taught you anything. And that's what this was about. Teaching us a lesson. Partly she took a sip from her cup, but mostly it was about showing you a better way. Your empire has achieved amazing things, Admiral. Your architectural technology is fascinating. Your medical sciences are advanced in ways we're still trying to understand. But you've wasted so much potential on conquest and domination. She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed various scenes from Drachnid history, great achievements in science and art, interspersed with acts of conquest and destruction. Humanity went through this phase, Nash explained. We spent millennia fighting each other, convinced that dominance was the only path to security. Then we nearly destroyed ourselves. When we survived by sheer luck, we promised to do better. And now you dominate others in the name of peace, Kazzix asked pointedly. Nash laughed. Hardly. We protect those who need protection. We stop bullies from hurting others. And occasionally, when someone is particularly stubborn, we turn their warships into water parks until they're ready to talk sensibly. She slid a data pad across the table. These are our terms. They're quite reasonable, actually. You maintain your independence. You keep your core worlds. You even keep your military, though we'll be monitoring its size and composition. And in return, you free your conquered worlds. You join the Galactic Alliance as equals, not conquerors. You share your medical technology, which could save billions of lives across known space. And she grinned, you help us set up some of those water parks permanently. Your people seem to really enjoy them. Kazzix reviewed the terms carefully. This is surprisingly lenient. Did you expect us to destroy you? Take revenge? That's not our way, Admiral. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to turn enemies into friends. And if we refuse? Nash's expression turned serious. Then we stop playing nice. We teleport your entire leadership to a nice prison planet we have set up. We dismantle your military infrastructure completely. And we oversee the transition of your empire into a loose confederation of independent worlds. It would be messy, complicated, and probably involve a lot more bouncy castles. Kazzix looked at the data pad again. You're offering us a chance to change on our own terms. Exactly. Because forced change never lasts. It has to come from within, she leaned forward. Your people are already changing, Admiral. They've seen there's another way. They've experienced joy where there was only military discipline. They've tasted freedom where there was only rigid control. As if to emphasize her point, another hologram appeared, showing Drachnid citizens playing in the transformed city spaces, laughing, enjoying themselves in ways Kazzix had never seen before. Your water parks and bouncy castles, he said slowly. They weren't just about humiliating us, were they? Now you're getting it, Nash smiled. Sometimes the best way to change a society is to show them how to have fun. Hard to maintain an oppressive military regime when your people are too busy enjoying life to hate others. She stood, extending her hand. So Admiral Kazzix, what do you say? Ready to help your empire become something greater than a conqueror of worlds? Kazzix looked at her hand, then at the scenes of his transformed homeworld. He thought about the children playing in the bouncy castle that had been the war museum. He thought about 10,000 years of history and the chance to write a new chapter. He extended his upper right hand and shook hers. I believe, Commander Nash, that the Drachnid Empire is ready for an upgrade. Excellent choice, she grinned. Now, about those water slides 1 year later. Admiral Kazzix stood on the observation deck of the newly renamed Stellar Friendship, formerly known as the Star Crusher. Below him, the capital city gleamed in the evening light, its skyline now a harmonious blend of traditional Drachnid architecture and human-inspired innovations. The War Museum, permanently transformed into what humans called a family fun center, had become the most popular location in the Empire. The sound of laughter drifted up even to his high perch. Admiring the view, Commander Nash's voice came from behind him. She was visiting for the first anniversary of the peace accords. Still getting used to it, he admitted, turning to face her with all 4 arms clasped behind his back. Do you know our productivity has actually increased since we stopped focusing on military conquest? Turns out happy citizens work better than terrified ones. Who would have thought? Nash grinned, joining him at the window. Though I have to say, your engineers have done amazing things with our water park technology. That quantum tunnel slide is genius. Yes, well, Kazzix's scales flushed slightly. I may have contributed a few ideas to that project. You, the terror of the outer systems? The mighty Admiral Kazzix designed water slides. I find it relaxing, he said defensively. Besides, someone had to calculate the optimal angle for maximum splashdown effect. They watched as a prismatic wave rolled across the city, but this time it was controlled, deliberate, transforming selected buildings into beautiful light sculptures. The Drachnid had learned to master the technology, using it for art rather than warfare. You know, Kazzix said thoughtfully, when you first turned our fleet into pleasure craft, I thought it was the most humiliating moment of my life. Now I realize it was actually the best thing that ever happened to us. That's usually how it works, Nash nodded. Sometimes you have to lose everything you think is important to find what actually matters. A group of young Drachnid flew past the window on what they called hoverboards, another adaptation of human technology. They waved at Kazzix, who found himself waving back with all 4 arms. Just one question, he said. Did you really need to keep the disco ball in the council chamber? Oh, that wasn't us, Nash laughed. Your counselors voted to keep it. Apparently they find it helps lighten the mood during budget meetings. Kazzix shook his head, chuckling. I suppose there's a lesson in all this. Oh, what's that? Next time we see an apparently harmless species, he said with a grin, we should probably just invite them to lunch instead of trying to conquer them. That, Nash agreed, and always check if they have water slides before starting a war. Above them, the stars twinkled peacefully, watching as 2 former enemies shared a laugh over the empire that had learned to play.